we are already in the future, and I don't really like it. We have a identity problem that involves basically the combination of a lot of a lot of different tastes and ways to perceive things, especially on the internet. This way and tastes of perceiving things are most likely to be a result of algorithm and content, because what usually happens is that we have a lot of the earlier described pocket feelings. If you don't know what pocket feelings is, I will link the video about the pocket feelings concept. But like what we have is this way of communicating art that is really easy and really, it recycles itself to be easy to reproduce and easy to categorize. So we have been being categorized for a really long time now, because what basically happens is that we have a tendency to, like, no, I can I think I can do it better. Um, since 4chan arrived, like what 4chan basically do is categorize things to a really high limit. So like they categorize people and uh, things people do and things on the internet and 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 ways of like people reacting to things. I guess they categorize like everything. Everything is something made of something. So like soy jack, the shed, a red pill. I don't know. Like all those different categories, they basically came from 4chan, and you have these categories because 4chan is like internet, but fast forward. You know, yeah, it is the internet, but it is like uh, a high process internet, a fast forward internet. Uh, so like it's like they are like living the internet, but literally like years ahead of us, and it is literally years ahead of us because a bunch of concepts we take from now is like they came from 4chan, because literally 4chan, like they had this process going on, and they figured out things and tendencies before everyone, because they literally had more time to do it, to do it. So like we have a tendency to categorize, and what 4chan did, summing it up, was categorize it earlier, faster, and the price of it was, of course, a bunch of needs, a bunch of really weird people, and all. But that's the main reason a bunch of things we have came from 4chan, because those people were literally living internet like years ahead, because they were making more things, more discussions, more posts, and doing it faster and faster. It's like a weird comparison, but it's like machine learning. So it's basically like a machine learning. So like it just gets things and optimize itself and optimizes its own concepts constantly. So yes, there is it. And like this categorizing, it comes from, again, internet, because we living on the internet, we have people from all different types of places, and you don't really understand what's going on, because you don't have like a function society on the internet. So the way you like make society function on the internet, all those type of different ways of thinking at once, it's like to categorize them. It really make them more digestible over time. So what happens is that you make all those different types of people more digestible, and you like, oh, I understand what the internet is now. The internet is this and this, and you just sum it up in your head because there is so much stuff, there's so much people that you have to like actually, you know um, really put into categories, put some boundaries. The same way we have like in society in real life. So you have, I don't know, you have the junkies, the workaholics, the I don't know, the guy who is into fitness a lot, um, the the guy that, I don't know, he's new age, he's hippie. I don't know, like all these different types of definitions and categories that every society have on its own. Like, I don't know, like the Japanese with hikikomori. I think that's an example. So yes, we have this tendency of categorizing, and like what people like no, what big techs do is take this categorizing phenomenon and like putting money on top of that, and not only money but like tendencies, art tendencies. So like we have all those social medias that like they try to put you against people, and they try to categorize you against another categorized people because that makes people engage in a lot of fights and discussions and everything like this. And what happens with this engagement process is that when you engage a lot, you're literally like giving your attention to those algorithms. They are learning your behavior, your pattern, the way you behave, and they put you against people that behave the opposite. So like we always had this categorization process, but what big techs do is take this categorization and put this like uh, in an advantage for you to pay attention to people you don't really want to be close by or associated with. And yeah, that's kind of obvious and all. But what actually happens is that when you categorize too much, it's also really easy to sell products and to sell art, because when you categorize things too much, when you are going to deliver a product, this product will come to be not not so unexpected, because if you categorize things a lot and you recognize all those patterns, you know what's going to work. And like not only big techs are aware of this, even small artists are aware of this, because we have a type of category that involves horror and art and aesthetics, and as I explained it earlier. So like we have the category of like feelings from vaporwave. So you have this vaporwave box, you have this funk box, you have this liminal space box, you have the analog horror box, and it's all categories, and it's all it's everything in the same, like funk, analog horror, liminal space. It's literally all the same thing, because all of those things, they are a representation of culture by itself, and not only culture by itself, but it's like in some way really anthropologic. It's about the man, by the man, for the man, and it's a cycle that repeats itself. So like every piece of art nowadays that is successful, they take you, the viewer, into account. So like every art nowadays is in some way, shape, or form metaphysical. They aren't really concerned with the story itself, but they are concerned with the metaphysics, the role you're putting in the story as an actual viewer or as a listener or everything else. So every art is in some way egotistical, or I don't know how I would define it, but it's really about the man, by the man, for the man itself. It's about the way we perceive society and art and music, and this goes to us by ourselves. For example, there is this game now called Amanda the Explorer, and it is basically a game that is like a horror, I don't know, a horror Dora the Explorer game. It's something along these lines. And what I believe that what makes this game successful is that it is like a third person experience. Oh no no no, a first person experience. Like you are partaking as a viewer in this game, as you know yourself in this game, and the same way it was with Dora a long time ago. But the thing with like Amanda, this game, is that it could work as a analog horror and it would be equally successful because what makes these games special is the role you are taking in your real life, so as to speak. So like analog horror, for example, the role of analog horror is like being in the way, like it being in the mood that what you're seeing is actually true. So it's like seeing something as like a fantasy of being true, of being in part with the experience. And like every, those arts I mentioned, they have this fantasy context because they take you in the thing. And without you being involved, there is no art. So as I said in the previous video, so like you have Death Note that, or I don't know, Breaking Bad. These two are like good stories. They are objectively good stories. They have good visuals, good visual narratives, alright, but they are good stories. But like if Death Note or Breaking Bad, I don't know, were made nowadays, what probably would make this successful would be something else entirely, and that something else would be the appearance, the the feeling it gives to you. So like they would have to do something, I don't know, nostalgic or make you feel special in some way. So you would have like to feel small or feel big or feel empty or feel grandiose or feel strong. You would have to feel something. And do you remember what I said, that funk, vaporwave, and all those things, they make you feel special? Is because they either make you feel something. Funk makes you feel strong. Vaporwave makes you feel nostalgic, melancholy, and this and this and that. It's about the feeling and the identification with the feeling. So the deliver of the feeling itself is really easy to give. It's actually really really easy to give. So like you don't have the art, like you don't have vaporwave for like, oh, this music sounds good. It sounds good. I like vaporwave a lot. I like Chuck Person, but like it is ultimately about the feeling it's giving me. It makes me feel special. And the thing all these forms of art I mentioned have in common is the nostalgic factor. So like funk has a nostalgic factor, vaporwave has a nostalgic factor, liminal space has a nostalgic factor among Americans. So they all have this nostalgic factor because they are all really self-aware in a sense because they really want to deliver you this feeling of feeling special. That is, something we don't get enough in society. We don't have this feeling of being special, but these forms of art makes us feel special all the way. So like when you categorize yourself in some group in the internet, you also feel special. You are always being special because you are always being categorized in a group either by your taste in music or art or anything, or by your behavior pattern. You're always being special, and this being special comes along like really basic pattern cognitive recognition, and with really like this pattern of taste and things you like and things you dislike. And what I'm trying to say is that like people nowadays are really predictable, but they are on a state that they feel so self-aware that they think that they are not because oh, I have all these feelings. I'm self-aware of these feelings. I can feel this and that, and I'm God, and I don't know. They just feels feel all those things, but they don't understand that feeling is like the first process. So like this feeling thing is just the first thing. If you are like talking in about happiness, happiness is just like the first step. It's not the last, it's not the only step, but we treat it like the only step. Every feeling today is the ultimate feeling. Every feeling is the living feeling, but we don't have like enough of non-feeling or non-identification. And this is because I said a lot about pattern recognition, taste, being special, feeling special, having a lot of identification. And that is because what capitalism does a lot is make you feel identified with your ego. And without ego there is no capitalism, basically. Without ego, without identification, without pattern, without taste, without algorithm, basically without ego, there is no capitalism. And this ego comes necessarily from materialism. And this materialism includes those feelings. So like I talked about how art these days is really metaphysical, but they aren't really metaphysical because they are really materialistic, because they preoccupy a lot, they worry a lot with giving you the feeling, and this feeling is ultimately materialistic. It's basically like pornographic in a sense. It's just pornographic. So you have this this way of deceiving people into patterns. And what happens basically is that scientificism dominates everything, and people will just like begin comparing themselves with robots and like AIs, and like it's not the AI that looks like me. I look like an AI. I think like a robot. I draw like a robot because I'm just a bunch of patterns, and we see ourselves, we condition ourselves into thinking we are patterns, and we like condition ourselves to feel like we are robots. And like you can say, oh, into a capitalism setting we are basically robots, but no, it's literally robots, literally, like the the living thing, the living AI, the living robot. We are literally comparing ourselves into that degree, and this is really urgent. This is the future. This, like, materialistic abomination is the future. Is like what all things have come into, like industrial industrial, I forgot, industrial revolution, industrial revolution. Everything that like made capitalism succeed has has done this, this materialistic ego or this materialistic degeneracy into us. And what I can recommend to anyone that thinks alongside these lines is, please seek non-dualism, seek religion, seek Jesus, seek God. Just seek something. Like, religion has never been more important today than has been, like, forever. And I'm saying this about religion because if you study religion, you will understand, like, the you will see what is happening with your ego, and you will see what is happening when you identify with a lot of those concepts, and you will see, like, basically what I'm trying to say is that, like, Buddhism, like, for example, if you study Buddhism, you will be like, oh, I see everything that is happening to today's society, and I don't want to be a part of it anymore. Because you'll be like out of the game, but you're going to see that there is no game to begin with, but like there's a way to say it. Like I hate defining reality as a game. There's a bunch of people who does it, but I don't like. But like, not about the game. It's about the narrative and feeling a part of it instead of into it. And we have to stop being into the narrative as quickly as possible, because it's like mind fucking our brains. So I'm sorry if this last part was confusing. My thoughts are kind of messy right now, but I hope this was useful to anyone who is listening to. And remember to listen to the first part of this. So thanks and goodbye.